What's up everyone? Andrew Lohr with Dirt Rider here, and we're about to get our 2022 450 Motocross Shootout underway. As you can see beside me here, we have 6 bikes in the test this year, including the GasGas MC 450F, Yamaha YZ 450F, KTM 450 SXF, Honda Sierra 450R, Kawasaki KX 450, and Husqvarna FC 450. We installed Dunlop GMX MX33 tires front and rear on all the bikes, and we also applied DecalWorks pre-printed number plate backgrounds. Now it's time to hit the track and see how they stack up.
Finishing in 6th place is the Honda Sierra 450R. All new in 2021, Big Red's flagship motocrosser returned for this year with updated ECU settings and revalve suspension. Although the revisions improved it as an overall package, the bike is still not up to par when compared to its competition. On the Dirt Rider dyno, it produces 53.8 horsepower and 34.1 pound-feet of torque, ranking it 3rd in peak horsepower and 2nd in maximum torque. On the track, it's still the fastest feeling bike in the class with the most aggressive engine character and therefore requires the most attention as things happen in a hurry with such strong power. Thankfully, it has an engine mode select button and Honda selectable torque control, which help tame the engine and make it more manageable. Although Honda improved the suspension setting for 2022, it's still not quite as good as we expect from Big Red. The Showa 49mm coil spring fork and Showa shock have good bones to work with, but require patience and tuning. They are still very tricky to dial in, need attention every ride, and are on the stiff side. The components simply lack comfort, especially when the track gets rough. Handling-wise, the Honda is the sharpest turning bike in the comparison. It's also the least stable and can be unpredictable at times. Having the most rigid, unforgiving chassis is yet another aspect that makes the Sierra 450R a pro-level bike for a pro-level rider. Ergonomics are still some of the best in the class. The Honda is easy to hop on and feel comfortable right away in that department. We only wish the rest of the bike were that agreeable. Slotting into 5th place is the Husqvarna FC 450, which returns with its 10mm lower suspension setup from last year. Changes for 2022 include a Brembo hydraulic clutch that replaces the Magura unit spec'd on prior year models. 4th is where the FC 450 ranks on the dyno with its 53.5 horsepower and 33.7 pound-feet of torque. Having the smoothest power delivery makes it the easiest to ride for long periods of time with less fatigue. The engine is strong and torquey as well, and almost deceivingly fast as a result. Because the suspension is on the soft side and already lower than the other bikes to begin with, some test riders attempted to get the Husqvarna to ride as high as possible in the stroke to get it to feel more like the KTM and GasGas. The WP Exact Air Fork has a nice feeling in the initial part of the stroke, and bottoming resistance is excellent because of its ability to ramp up in pressure quickly. Balance from front to rear is okay, but test riders notice some pitching. The benefits of the FC 450's lower stance are that it corners very well and is confidence-inspiring to shorter riders. Stability is impressive too, making for a mostly neutral handling chassis. Riding position is comfortable and width feel is middle of the road. It's definitely not the widest machine, but not the narrowest either. The Husqvarna's easy-to-ride power delivery and lower suspension setup make it an excellent choice for vet riders and those of shorter stature. On the other hand, younger, more aggressive riders will want a bike with a livelier engine character, more traditional suspension setup that rides higher in the stroke, and doesn't have the highest price tag. Finishing in 4th place in its Dirt Rider 450 Motocross Shootout debut is the GasGas MC 450F. The 2022 model is the exact same as the 2021, even down to the graphics. The red Austrian machine also made its first appearance on our in-house dyno, where it made 54 horsepower and 33.9 pound-feet of torque. With those figures, the MC 450F ranks 2nd in peak horsepower and 3rd in maximum torque. The GasGas's power delivery is ultra-linear, but slower revving and not as sharp as the KTM's. Its softer power is more similar to the Husqvarna's, making it one of the most mellow engine packages in the class. It's very easy to ride and put in consistent laps. Contributors to its power characteristic differences from the KTM and Husqvarna are its header pipe with no resonance chamber, a lack of an optional vented airbox cover, and not having a map or traction control switch. Although it's equipped with the same WP Exact 48mm air fork and WP Exact shock as the KTM, the suspension settings of the GasGas lean in a much different direction. They are soft, spongy, and springy. Action is a little more lively, but also less predictable. The GasGas also offers more chassis comfort than the KTM with its forged triple clamps and using the same swing arm as the Husqvarna. The MC 450F is also the lightest in this comparison at 234 pounds wet, as measured on our automotive scales. With a suggested retail price of $9,599, the GasGas costs the same as the 3 Japanese bikes in this comparison and is the least expensive Austrian 450 motocrosser, all while sharing the same engine, suspension, chassis, fantastic Brembo hydraulic clutch, and strong Brembo brakes as the KTM. Conversely, the GasGas's result is hampered by the fact that the KTM offers more features, performs better, and is more of a race bike right out of the box. Rounding out the podium is the Yamaha YZ 450F. Updates for Blue Crew in 2022 include new internal fork and shock settings, a lighter rear wheel and chain, and switching from a 2-cross spoke pattern to a 3-cross on the rear wheel. On the Dirt Rider dyno, the YZ 450F churned out 52.8 horsepower and 32.4 pound-feet of torque, putting it 5th in peak horsepower and tied with the Kawasaki KX450 for least peak torque. Nevertheless, Yamaha's flagship motocrosser is a beast on the track. It could tow a YZ 125 up hills and still pass other 450s. It's aggressive with a crisp EFI feel and snappy throttle response. Mid-range torque is second to none. Compatibility with Yamaha's Power Tuner app gives it the best EFI tunability in the class. The KYB SSS fork and KYB shock are once again the best suspension in the class. Firmer settings for 2022 please intermediate and pro-level test riders, especially those in the 175 to 190 pound range, but some of lesser weight and speed found the going a bit rough, with a few even mentioning they prefer the 2020 and 2021 model's base setting for its plusher feel. Although firmer, the components still offer comfort, are tunable, and have better hold-up than ever. Class-leading stability while maintaining good cornering ability are trademark characteristics of the YZ 450F. It hits the Dirt Rider scales at 247 pounds wet, making it the heaviest bike of those gathered here. The extra weight is noticeable on the track, such as when trying to slow down and dive into an inside line. Excessive width in the radiator shroud area and midsection, a low seat that's thin on foam, and disproportionate rider triangle leave something to be desired in the ergonomics department. A slimmer chassis, lighter feeling on the track, more linear power delivery, better ergonomics, losing weight, and a hydraulic clutch would put the YZ 450F at or closer to the front of the pack. Finishing in the runner-up spot is the KTM 450 SXF. Although it did not receive any mechanical changes for 2022, the Austrian manufacturer stuck with what worked well last year, and it paid off with a second-place result. Spinning 55 horsepower and 34.3 pound-feet of torque on our in-house dyno, the KTM makes the most peak horsepower and torque of the bikes in this comparison. It offers the longest power delivery and pulls seemingly forever in each gear. It's also impressively strong and torquey. These characteristics make the KTM engine one of the most versatile in the class. It can be short-shifted and lugged or revved to the moon effectively, making it suitable for riders of varying skill levels and riding styles. It's not as free-revving as the Japanese bikes, nor is its throttle response as crisp or snappy. It also has a noticeable amount of vibration. In accordance with KTM's ready-to-race mantra, the 450 SXF has the most performance-oriented suspension setup of the Austrian bikes. Its setting is firmer than the GasGas, Husqvarna, and Kawasaki, but not as stiff as the Yamaha's. Comfort is better than the Honda, but the WP Exact air fork and WP Exact shock are still not as plush as the Kawasaki and Yamaha's respective suspension. One of the main factors that makes the KTM so much fun to ride is its superb, neutral handling chassis. The 450 SXF and its Austrian siblings are second quickest to turn behind the CRF 450R. The orange machine is also stable and predictable at speed. Balanced handling characteristics are complemented by its 235-pound measured wet weight, tying it with the Husqvarna for second lightest in the comparison. Further sweetening the deal are agreeable ergonomics and Brembo brakes, which are strongest in the class and a shared component with the Husqvarna and GasGas. More suspension and chassis comfort and a freer feeling engine character are what the KTM needs to reach the top step of the podium in this comparison. Capturing its 4th consecutive victory in Dirt Rider's 450 Motocross Shootout is the Kawasaki KX450. No mechanical changes for 2022, but Team Green's flagship motocrosser didn't need any to retain its place at the top of the class. It's not the highest performing motorcycle on the dyno with 52.2 horsepower and 32.4 pound-feet of torque, ranking at 6th in peak horsepower and tied with the YZ450F for least peak torque. The engine doesn't offer the most power in any part of the RPM range, but is very lively, usable, and easy to ride. Crisp throttle response, minimal engine braking, and the easiest clutch pull via its Nissan hydraulic system are other positive qualities of the KX450 power plant. Suspension duties are handled by a Showa 49mm coil spring fork and Showa shock, which are very plush, simple to tune, and fairly well balanced. Riders over 170 pounds will find the fork to be a touch soft and slightly out of balance in relation to the shock. Those under that weight will find the components very close to perfect in stock trim. Handling is predictable and consistent with a near perfect balance of cornering and stability. Chassis comfort is high, and even though the Green Machine ties the CRF 450R for second heaviest bike in the test at 244 pounds wet, it feels lighter than most of its competition. Class-leading ergonomics with narrow bodywork, a flat seat, well-proportioned rider triangle, and smaller overall feeling give the KX450 the best ergonomics in the class. A firmer fork setting, less touchy rear brake, and a handlebar-mounted engine map select button are what Kawasaki's flagship motocrosser needs to make it even better for next year.
So that wraps up for Dirt Rider's 2022 450 Motocross Shootout with the Kawasaki KX450 taking its 4th consecutive victory. An easy to ride but lively engine character, plush suspension, neutral handling chassis, and agreeable ergonomics are just a few reasons the KX450 came out on top once again. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you haven't gotten a chance to already, head on over to dirtrider.com to read the full shootout. And we'll see you next time.